Hello and welcome back to the Awakening Philosophy Podcast. My name is Jed and we are reading the Philosophical Midwifery book today. We are in chapter 3. Chapter 2 was about the pathologos. Super interesting, super important, considering human beings are sleepwalking because we have a pathologos sitting, carrying with us, being carried with us in our soul that we project onto the world and respond to in a way that is narrowed to one kind of response and one state of being in that response in the circumstances where the pathologos takes over. So if that's our human condition, it's very, very important that we understand it, and for our own well-being primarily. Secondarily, to help others, to help our friends and loved ones, and then ultimately to share that way of being based on what our pathologos imitates, a way of being based on the actual logos, the actual self, actual unity, actual care, actual understanding, learning, and development. So, considering that's the human condition, we are all zombies. We don't have a pathologos. It has us, controls our life, keeps us trapped in our repeating cycles of failures, and makes us unable, what we read last time in chapter 3, the pathologos we can see is different from the 5 other categories of belief because it can block you from being able to even relate to evidence that conclusively shows, or that sufficient evidence to prove our false beliefs wrong. We may be unable to hear it or relate to it. Considering the pathologos functions as a block because it blocks us from the logos. Which is interesting because the implications are, well, we're here to discover and follow the logos. It's our way home, and it's our way of mastery. Mastering what? Ourselves. And our psyche and our language. So super important considering what we've learned. And chapter 3, which is what we're on now, we've gone through the 6 kinds of belief, and they're in a hierarchy. Axioms there isn't any evidence, but there can't be because it's a logical necessity. The logical principle that has a logical necessity, that's an axiom. It's a kind of belief. Followed by scientific belief, number 2 on the list, where there is sufficient evidence. Again, what unifies beliefs is we don't know. Axioms seem self-evidently true. If A is equal to B and C is equal to B, then A and C are equal to each other. There is an evidence for that, and there can't be evidence for that. How could you? Scientific beliefs, there is sufficient evidence, which is number 2, but of course we can discover new evidence or discover a new theory or reframe the current evidence within a new hypothesis, and a good example of that is gravity. Newton, the guy with the apple, he thought gravity was one way, then Einstein changed the model, and that's science. Scientific belief. Simple belief, you don't have enough evidence, and I think of like putting petrol in the car. I don't really know why that works. They didn't really collect any evidence, but I have enough, kind of. Insufficient, but I'm using it anyway. Supernatural belief, again, this one is less so, 4th one down. If you want to understand religious beliefs, this is the class. Supernatural belief. 4th from the top, no evidence, and there can't be any. You cannot prove Mary was a virgin. You cannot prove Muhammad did this or that. You cannot prove all the stuff they want you to believe in supernatural belief. The 5th kind of belief, prejudice. There's a bottom two right now, which is the thing that we saw distinguishes the bottom two is there is a lack of awareness. Whereas the other four, you've got an awareness. You don't know. Or prejudice, you have some awareness. Pathologos, which is the sixth, the bottom, no awareness. They both have insufficient evidence to support this generalized belief. So they're both insufficient. And what's unique about the bottom two, prejudice and pathologos, is there is sufficient evidence to prove it wrong. So same for both of them. The difference between prejudice and pathologos is there is no awareness when there can be some of prejudice, but not only can you do you deny, and not only are you unable to accept that your prejudice belief has been proven wrong, the pathologos kind of belief might make you unable to relate to evidence at all. And finally, the last category of belief, the one that we're after, is worse even than a prejudice, because A, you don't know, it's a lack of awareness. B, they both have insufficient evidence, but also there is sufficient evidence to show you're wrong. But what makes pathologos different from prejudice is you might not be able to relate to the evidence at all. You can get triggered, you can try and shut down the conversation. Shut up, you. Or I don't like your face, or I don't like your tone. Or let's get him, boys, let's gang up, let's mock, let's threaten, all that sort of shit that shuts down the conversation. Another thing that's different about the pathologos is it's specifically about the nature of self and reality. And finally, pathologos is unique as the sixth and bottom class of belief. Down here, axiom, scientific, simple, supernatural, prejudice, pathologos, because it is always irreconcilable with our highest, most personally meaningful goals, which is, again, something we have to be seeking at all times as best we can in this game. Necessarily, in order to surface these pathologos that we can practice our art of philosophical midwifery on, in order to remove them, learning about ourselves, learning about our problems, and learning about the false idea of ourselves we're carrying, and removing that, freeing us from those chains or that zombie virus, depending on what metaphor you want to use. That's where we are. So, and now we're on, here's a nice summary. Axiom is a logical necessity. Scientific belief, sufficient evidence. Simple belief, insufficient evidence. Supernatural belief, lack of evidence. Prejudice, denial of evidence. And pathologos, unable to relate to or acknowledge the evidence. It's a nice summary. That's where we are. And we're doing well. So let's jump into the reading. So that's the sound for let's start reading. We've defined the pathologos, and in doing so, we have separated it from the other beliefs. Keep in mind, it's the pathologos we're after. It is, while each kind of belief has its own field of operation and its own kind of problems, it is the exploration of the nature of the sixth kind of belief, the pathologos, that is the object of our study. At the heart of the pathologos problems, there is always the assumption that there is a parallel or meaningful comparison that can be made between one's past and one's present situations. Indeed, a problem exists because, to the believers, their response to the present problems appears so natural, inevitable might be a key word, to them that they seem to be the most appropriate thing to do. On reflection, we can understand that they relate to their present problems based on the model based on what they learned to do in their past. Relate to the present based on what they learned to do in the past. They base their way of being on a model derived from past learning, which is to say that they relate to their present as if it were analogous to their past. Thus, while they believe there is a necessity to their conclusions, there is not only a lack of evidence to support them, but they have to deny a mass of evidence that opposes their conclusions. Further, they become confused and defensive.
Wow! What?
About their situation, because they cannot relate to the existence of what they can't acknowledge. So, when we're dealing with people who are stuck in their problems, there is a high likelihood they will get confused and defensive. And if you've ever tried to talk rationally to people who are in their pathologos problems, you know what I'm talking about. And of course, we're reading the Mino on this channel currently, and we did our first reaction video to a few streamers, and in that reaction video, our first for the channel, the streamers were talking about the blowback, the counterattacks, the threats, the ganging up, the harassment, the lying, the vilification that both of these regular streamers received simply because they are trying to introduce reason and understanding. In order to understand the situation of the world, its causes, and try and figure out what we would need to do to solve them. Seems like common sense stuff. It is for other species, not for humanity. To reflect with understanding, to reflect on the causes of problems and have a desire to fix them in order to benefit all people, that's rare. That's being mature and rational, but it's rare. Because, well, as the reason for this book,
no one seems to be learning or growing or addressing actual problems.
No one seems to be learning or
growing or addressing actual problems.
No one seems to be learning or growing or addressing actual problems. We are an immature species. The movement into this understanding is the movement from barbarianism, and we see that everywhere. Our entire fucking planet is set up within a system that is disgustingly evil. Not evil as a supernatural force, but as harmful as you can be. Pathologos-ridden system, basic fundamental things that are the cause of human problems, wealth inequality, capitalism, which is designed to exploit people and drain all the resources and quality of life away from 99.9% of everyone to us 0.1% of the most disgusting human beings on the planet. That's a sick system. Why the fuck are we still doing it? Because we are stupid baby animals. Now, not so stupid that we can't improve, but that's where we are. We are babies with language, and we're still acting in a barbarian-like way. Why? Because we are at times blocked from being rational by the pathologos. This is key. If you want to help your friends, if you want to help yourself, if you want to save the world, you got to understand the pathologos. So it seems. But yes, and so we had a watch along, and they were talking about, they're not even introducing the logos. They're just introducing simple reason and reflection. They haven't even solved the problem of the pathologos, but they're trying their best to do so. even that is enough of a reason and logos to trigger this confusion and defensiveness and even aggression from the people who have been brainwashed by their pathologos and then have been manipulated by people within society who are manipulating them based on their pathologos. It's no coincidence that the fascists and the capitalists and the politicians vomit 15 different slurs. I hate gays, I hate women, I hate foreigners, I hate Mexicans, I hate the poor, they always do that. Because one of those will be similar enough for your pathologos for you to be like, that guy's wise, that guy's my daddy, that guy's knows. Not my daddy. That guy's wise and knowing, which is actually because they're imitating your daddy. Which is why, time of recording 2025, and the lead up to the Trump election, the Republicans were openly calling him daddy, and they want him to spank people, which is fucked, but makes sense if you understand the pathologos, and you understand that's their entire play. They are all themselves motivated by the pathologos, otherwise they wouldn't be acting so immaturely, irrationally, and objectively bad and harmfully if their pathologos wasn't preventing them from participating in the good and the reason. Yeah, the reason. Equally so, people who try and, boo for them. People trying to fight back or stop the fucking Nazi shit that's happening right now. People who try and fight back face this confusion and defensiveness because they are driven by their pathologos. Worth seeing. They are defensive. They become confused and defensive about their situation because they cannot relate to the existence of that which they can't acknowledge. Like, to get an understanding of that, you might think about, like, maybe you've done something very well in the past and people were giving you compliments, but no matter how many compliments they were giving you, you couldn't quite register. To the point it might have been frustrating for you and maybe frustrating for your friends. Like, dude, we've told you that this was great like 10 times. What do you want from us? That kind of thing. So, while this style of relating appears to be analogical, it is not the result of a deliberate, conscious, comparative judgment. Because if it were, it would mean the terms and their significance would be known to the believer. So, we've already established that they don't know what's going on. Zombie state, sleepwalking state. The amnesia of our pathologos. Mirroring the amnesia of our soul, forgetting where we were before this incarnation. Mirroring the amnesia you get when you wake from a dream. So think about those three together if you like. That's fun. And also we've talked about the fact that if we knew the effect of passing on this pathologos belief to our loved ones, we wouldn't do it. There's a kind of blindness or ignorance and also amnesia about the effect of passing on these pathologos to our children or loved ones. And therefore, we don't know what it is. We don't know the significance of it. Yeah, so those are the terms and the significance. Don't know the terms, we don't know what, and we don't know how it's going to end. So it's not a conscious analogical functioning, which is why we say we don't have it, it has us, which is one of the many, many ways why punishment is stupid. If you don't know what you're doing and the significance of what you're doing, it is evil to punish that person because they don't know what they're doing or how it's going to end. So why do you think hitting them will help them learn those things? Of course, you need to condone condoning before you can even start to learn how to be mature. Because if you think that hurting someone else helps them in this, the human journey from pathologos to logos, you are wrong. And you don't know the significance of what you're doing when you hurt people under teaching them a lesson or punishing them or teaching them consequences or any of that fucking bullshit that the pathologos uses to justify hurting a person in order to self-righteously play out that model of the pathologos that was done to you. Do unto others the same kind of pathologos injustice that was done unto you. That's what most people are. Not all the time, but in the most significant moments of their life. And for a lot of people, yeah, most of the time. It governs their life. So, condoning. It's irrational, it's stupid, and it prevents learning. Prevents dialogue, prevents logos, prevents reflection. Anything good is prevented by this. So condoning, give up the blame game just to begin, just to get in the door. And the more you learn, the more absurd any sort of justification for inflicting suffering on another person becomes. Consider the following analogy. The believer's present is to the past as a copy is to a model. Now, considering the significance of analogies, as we've been reading and learning, we think through analogies. Our problem is this false analogy. So it looks like the author's Pierre is saying, okay, time to really get into what the heck an analogy is. The present is to the past. So this is what an analogy is. This is to this. So these two terms, remember there's only two things in the world. There are terms, well, you could say, well, we were saying there are only two basic principles that humans are relating to in life, our pathologos and our movement to the logos. But another duad you can say is, well, there are only two things in the world, things and relationships between things. An analogy summarizes it in its simplest form. So it's like the model of analogies, which then become the model for everything else. So the model of models. And so here are the two terms, present and past. Terms, and is to is the relationship that it denotes. And it's that relationship that is the same or similar. Some same, some different, or like. So the word as is a word that means like. Likeness, of course, one of the self-logos words. One of the 12 primary fundamental ideas and principles of reality. When I say ideas, I mean aspects of reality that you can behold. Wholeness, partness, sameness, difference, infinity, limit, in time, out of time, like and unlike. So those are the fundamental building blocks of reality, that everything participates in likeness in some way, in wholeness in some way, in a part in some way, etc., etc. Fundamental building principles and building blocks of reality, but also of thought. Perception. So likeness, and that's the analogy is the fundamental use or model for analogy. So that's as. So the way the present is to the past, so that kind of relationship is like the relationship the same is to between two completely different terms, copy and model. Notice also, they're two different sets, two different classes of things. That's what analogy can do. this relationship between terms in this class of things you are aware of, use that to understand this new set of terms, new class of terms, set, and their relationships. Use this that you know to understand this in a different world that you don't know. And the implications of that is, well, what if there are different realities that we don't know of at the 5th and 6th and 7th dimensions? Is there something we can learn about the dimension we are conscious of, the everyday three-dimensional world, through our senses? Can we understand the terms and relations of that sufficiently, most primarily, boil the physical world down to its essential terms and relationships? My guitar just fell over. Oh, goodness. Can we do that so we can boil down the essential terms and relationships of our physical world so that we can carry them with us into a different world we're unfamiliar with or we don't remember, so that we can relate what we do know analogically to make sense of this higher world? This is the idea of wherever we're going after this lifetime, or ideally during this lifetime, the higher dimensions of knowing reality and self. The idea is we can't take back with us physical things, but we can take with us on our journey a skill and a nurturing and quality of soul, both of which we develop in understanding the logos. Analogy means another logos. Logos. So maybe we can gain a sufficient understanding of our physical world, the key terms and relationships, carry that with us to our enlightenment experiences, or in death, or wherever we go after our soul, after we die, or in meditation or something like that, in order to relate or finish our work here, sufficiently understand this world so that we can relate it analogically to another logos of a higher sort. And of course, the art of midwifery is the same kind of thing, except downward. Now that you have risen to a greater level of wholes, then all of these other things that you thought were most real and most triggered you and most got you emotional and most distracted you or got you caught up, what formerly you were caught up with as real, you can now see as simply a part within a greater whole, because you're seeing it from a different perspective. That's what we're learning here. The movement from belief to understanding. We're gaining an understanding of the dialectic and the logos and the pathologos. We can use that to turn around and help those who haven't yet reached the level of understanding. Thumbs up. Because we can do that because we are able to perceive it from a greater level of whole. So the idea is, the Einstein quote people like, you can't solve a problem from the same level of thinking that created the problem. That idea. So that's turning around and using our logos or analogos and perspective from a more evolved level to help those who were formerly, or who were in the condition we were formerly at. Hopefully from our understanding of what was involved, both in understanding and experience, or skill and character, education and nurture of the soul. From that experience and learning, we'll be able to hopefully recognize the difficulties involved in this journey from logos to pathologos, the human journey, and help others through it themselves. Ooh, in the chat, "Tis might be a stupid question, but is the logos basically the truth? Or is it something that just appears to be true, or at least contains a grain of truth?" Good question. All right. So, you are comparing two terms. What is the logos relationship to truth? let's understand how we can play with analogies. So the analogy that we've been given in the book is when you are a pathologos person, a zombie who hasn't gone through midwifery yet, a pathologos zombie human. Oops. Human. That's the pathologos. Pathologos still present. Then you think the present, which is the term, is to wait, that's sometimes represented as ... like this, is to past. Which is this. As, which we said is like, which is, I'll do the symbols here. So 1 dot for that, 2 sets of dots for like or as the copy, is to the model. So the implications of that we are going to explore. Another analogy. Logos is to truth as what is to what? Is it like a logos is to truth like like the nutrients in a cheeseburger? There are a few grains of nutrients in there, but mainly it's garbage. Like contains a grain of truth. So in your question, you said, does it contain a grain of truth? So even the word grain lets us know, oh, there's no grain, like there are no grains in truth or logos. You're using an analogy. Analogy to grain. Grain is small. You get a grain of sand caught in your eye, that kind of thing. So you're already using an analogy to understand the relationship of logos to truth. Now, to understand the real relationship of logos to truth, you have to read a text that is written by someone who is participating or sharing in the logos sufficiently. And so they will write a book where they will talk about the logos, and hopefully they'll define it, and they'll say how it functions or demonstration. And they will say, hey, these are the possible other ways that it can function, or division. And then we'll have a conclusion. Those are the 4 stages of the dialectic. That's what you look for specifically about the logos. You don't want to answer this question about what's this? How do we understand the relationship of logos to truth? You don't want to answer that with anything you're carrying with you currently. You don't want to use the opinions you have, because that's garbage. It's just garbage from your pathologos and your upbringing in your society. And we know that no one in our society understands the logos. As we were saying, we haven't evolved. Well, we only have had a few people in our history who have gone through the work to understand it. Most people are just running around chasing their tails as a zombie human, or a baby human, or a baby species who has not yet understood language or the logos. So you don't want to use that. That's why we read. So one of the reasons why we read, one of the big reasons why we read. We want to read Socrates or Pierre Grimes or Proclus maybe, or Parmenides, but mainly Socrates and Pierre Grimes, two people who have mastered the logos and write in a certain kind of a way to give you the clues. Remember, this isn't a look at the back of the textbook kind of a thing. This is an activity to live in. It's a way of living, a way of being that you practice and learn and nurture into your soul, because it's a way of being that if you nurture it into your soul and you learn it, you can take it with you and apply it when you're out of body. That's the one of the messages of the Phaedo. Not just out of body, but in the next world after. If you've sufficiently done this, then there's no need for you to reincarnate. You can go to another world, a higher dimension, but you don't want to. If you were at a higher dimension, you wouldn't want some like Nazi or some bigot or some know-it-all idiot hanging out with you there. That would be terrible. You'd want a kind of a soul who is practiced in this kind of problem solving, this kind of reading, this kind of looking for the dialectic, this kind of, carrying of questions and sharing of questions. But not just sharing questions, but sharing your hypotheses or possible answers. Because the way you answer it is you read in the way that we've been reading, and then you create your own dialectic. Let me explain what the logos is. What it is: definition, demonstration, division, synthesis, analysis. And what if we lived in a universe where it doesn't exist? What would you say about the logos? Is it an appearance? Is it a lie? Is it a scam? Is it a pyramid scheme? How does it function? So one for one for that. You probably want to read a text that can tell you about truth as well. And then you can have the fun game of creating an analogy to help others, or help yourself and share it with others, to help them understand what you discovered about logos and truth through the analogy you created by your reading and your hypothesis and your speculation and practice of the dialectic. My job is to encourage you to do that. So I will say, go for it. You can do it.
You're a wizard, Harry.
You're a wizard, Harry, and I will cheer you. And if you do it, it'll be a win-win.
It's a win-win.
Yeah, most well-structured books are like that. No, so I'm jumping ahead. You're probably right. That's right. Like, I'm not going to read the rest because I'm going to respond to that first part first. I think you're right in that if the dialectic is the paradigm for everything, it's the paradigm for narrative. It's the paradigm for story writing. It's the paradigm for film writing. It's the paradigm for video game writing. You're right. Good books are written in this way, the dialectic. Good conversations are had in this way. That's why we read Socrates and why we read this book. But not every author knows that. Not every author is doing it consciously. And not every author has understood that the structure they're using isn't whatever they told you at school. It's the dialectic. And they don't know about the logos. So we want to know we want to read people who have mastered the logos. Just like if we want to be a great motocross rider, we would read the books and when we follow the instructions from the best motocross riders in the world. If we want to learn the art of the logos, we got to read the books written by those who have mastered the logos. Current masters of the logos: Socrates, Pierre Grimes, Plato ? Proclus ? But mainly Socrates and Pierre Grimes. They're right at the top. Again, you don't believe that. You have to kind of trust it, or at least be open to it. Hopefully that explanation contains enough, clarity, reason, evidence, for you to trust it as a statement. Like, be open to this idea. But then you go out and do it, and it doesn't have to be a belief. You'll just see it. And as you practice it and come back and practice it, you're nurturing your soul, and you're learning a new skill. These are the things that you can take with you in your soul because they're non-physical. One eye for the soul. Yeah. So, most books are well structured like that, but I'm still a bit skeptical of that dialectic because I, and others, can manipulate things like definition or division. This manipulation can stem from a lack of knowledge, limited experience, or other factors. Or I'm understanding the dialectic wrong. No, that's good. So keep in mind, the dialectic is just a hypothesis. It's what's most likely. We're using likeness for analogy, but that's how we think. You don't know anything for certain if you're looking through your physical senses in the third dimension, because that's the realm of belief. See? The best you can get, I guess, is scientific belief in axioms. But this is still babies. This is kindergarten. Once you realize there are different classes of belief, including axioms and scientific beliefs, you can ask the question, what are the principles that are necessary for there to be this hierarchy of belief? What are the conditions necessary for physical evidence? And a mind that perceives them, and a soul that can learn to understand them. Now you've gone from the physical world to the causes and principles of the physical world. Now you're in the realm of true understanding and philosophy. So, make several hypotheses. That's the first thing. It's about carrying not just your questions, but also your hypotheses and sharing them with others. So you might read another page or another text tomorrow, and then you'll do another dialectic. You might do a dialectic on logos, and then by the end of it, your conclusion, you've seen something new that you can take back to the definition. Now you've learned something more about the logos, simply from you organizing your thoughts. Now, which means if you have a new idea of the logos, time for a new dialectic. See how it evolves upwards rather than our pathologos that keeps us stuck in the same cycle of drama and problems, whereas this moves up. But you're right. You need to make sure that you are using information from someone who knows his stuff. If you want to be a master mechanic and you go to a mechanic who knows nothing about cars, you're not going to become a master mechanic. They will lie to you. That's called sophism. Today we call them debate bros or right-wingers or people who use words to lie and deceive knowingly because of their pathologos or because they haven't realized that there is such a thing as truth. Maybe they're nihilists or relativists or materialists. Again, all of these different classes of ways of thinking about the world can also be hierarchically arranged, with nihilism right down the bottom. Materialism, which is there's only the physical world, pretty much like next one up. Really, really terrible. But where we start, which is why Socrates says, look, in the Phaedo, you start with looking through your physical senses. And the biggest part of your soul that motivates you is desire, physical desire. That's why all wars and conflict is nothing other than people motivated by their physical desire trying to get more physical stuff. And that's baby shit. And they lie. They lie constantly. Capitalist businessmen, bosses, because no one knows shit. To know shit, you have to remove your pathologos. Ain't no one doing that. To know shit, you have to use that freedom to actually learn the logos and get to truth. Ain't no one doing that except our community. So everyone is there lying. So you're right to be skeptical about how people misuse language and definitions to manipulate. That's why we read Socrates and Pierre Grimes, two people who know this, understand why people are so terrible in that kind of way, and have written books for us that if we use it as the information or the material to structure our dialectic, then our hypotheses are going to be more accurate, but it upgrades. You start to see how and why it must be this way. Seeing how and why the pieces must fit. Now you're upgrading to understanding. But the dialectic doesn't just finish there. If you're doing a dialectic on, let's say, the logos, and the logos' existence is non-physical, it is transcendent, it is metaphysical, it is one of the aspects of true being, true consciousness, so it's a higher dimension thing, what we're seeking, and if you're doing a dialectic on that, you're creating the conditions for actually experiencing it, which means you've moved from these classes of belief to understanding to something called nous. Direct experience or confirmation, or knowledge with a capital K. So you're learning how to think, you're learning how to read, you're learning how to structure it, you're learning how to communicate, but you're also setting the conditions for your enlightenment experiences. And that's why we read the books that we read on the channel. I like the concept of the pathologos. It helped me filter my beliefs and be honest with myself, or at least try to be honest with myself. Yeah. Keep it up. Don't throw away stuff. Like if you've got something that you think, I have a different way of understanding human problems, carry both. You carry both. And then as you have more experiences and you learn, you'll start to see, my experiences kind of fit more with the second one, or the third one, or the fourth one I'm carrying. And you'll start to see what comes to light as the more accurate hypothesis. And the same applies to our midwifery. Because along with doing that, understanding the truth about logos and truth, we also have to do the work of spelunking our soul, searching the hidden cave of our soul for the hidden treasure of our pathologos. That's midwifery. That's what we're doing here. Similar art, same art of dialectic, but used to uncover your false beliefs about yourself that are the worst kinds of beliefs. They are that you don't even know you have a pathologos. It's a judgment about yourself and reality. It's derived from your particular experiences in your childhood, in your past. It's generalized to all. You can't relate to or accept the evidence that shows you that you're wrong. So you're stuck, you're blocked. You think, feel, and act as if it were true. Think, feeling, and act. So the way, like people say, just let everyone have their own beliefs. What if people think, feel, and act on their beliefs? Maybe it's worthwhile to understand and help people and not let Nazis convert other Nazis or other cult members recruit children into their cult. It's not just a belief. It's not just a harmless belief. You think, feel, and act on it as if they were general truths, self-evident general truths. It's just common sense, they'll say. Come on, it's common sense. Those immigrants are blah, blah, blah. Just common sense, women, blah, 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 blah. You know? We call such irrational beliefs the pathologos, and they're always irreconcilable with the attainment of one's personally meaningful goals. So pathologos is the most important thing to do. Now you might say, well, hang on a second, you also have to be doing the philosophy as well, because if your goal isn't understanding the truth or understanding the logos or understanding the self, then you're not setting yourself up for your most meaningful goal, which is the condition for surfacing your pathologos, because these beliefs are always irreconcilable with the attainment of your most personally meaningful goals. So you're not going to surface them to find the treasure unless you're doing that. So you can say, well, pathologos is the most important, it's primary, it's the most important thing we can do while we're here. Yeah, but also learn the logos as well. learn to know yourself and reality and understand it and master it, which is, again, the dialectic.
Wow.
So that's nice.
A win-win-win-win-win.
Okay, so back to analogy. So that was my answer to your question about the relationship between logos and truth. My answer is, you find out and then tell me. And then tell all of us in the Discord. Or maybe the word logos or truth, especially if you're reading the Balboa translations. By the way, real philosophy can only happen if you're reading the one Balboa translations of Plato. Why do I say that? Well, Plato, Socrates, Proclus, Plotinus, these Platonists, but essentially Plato. Plato started the academy. These other philosophers came after Plato, and they often were heads of, like, the head teacher at the academy, but they were studying the work of Plato. And Plato was describing the conversation Socrates had. So you can't do philosophy unless you've got Socrates. Because you need a master of the logos. And somebody who has written it in such a way where he's not giving you answers like a scientific textbook. Notice our education system currently is immature and irrational as well. It's fucked. Our education system is fucked. Because
No one seems to be learning or growing or addressing actual problems.
we can't learn or grow. What kind of education is that? We can't solve problems. What kind of education is that? We're told to regurgitate answers given to us. That's the opposite. If the real education is learning this in order to recover our old memories or remember the truth about self and reality, then how are you going to do that if you're just regurgitating a stupid answer from a stupid teacher from school? So this is a different way of understanding what we're here for and what learning is. So, you've got a great question. That's the point. It's not an answer, it's a question. It's a question. And if you want to do philosophy, if you want to do anything, you have to be doing midwifery. If you want to be the best bicyclist in the world, if that's a personally meaningful goal, you have to be doing midwifery. Otherwise, you will be blocked from excellence in that art, in that field, because it is always irreconcilable with your most personally meaningful goals. So if becoming the best BMX rider in the world is a personally meaningful goal, you can't get there unless you're doing midwifery. So, therefore, midwifery is the most important thing to do. Understanding and removing your pathologos. On the other hand, once you start doing that, you might start to realize, hang on a second, I'm rational. I'm able to solve my problems and become the best BMX rider in the world because I'm rational. And every problem is understandable. Why? How? And every thought I have is helping me solve that puzzle. And every problem is just directing me to face that puzzle and solve it and free myself. That must mean what? That there's a profound, all-embracing intelligence, and it profoundly cares for you. And it will help you. Whether you want it or not, whether you ask it or not, that's not what helping is. It's a gift. So you're going to start wondering, hang on a second, what is going on? And then what started as midwifery to become a BMX player now becomes midwifery to do philosophy, know the truth about reality, or beauty, or self, or justice, all of these aspects of reality. And you can't do philosophy without Socrates. That's why we read, or Plato. Without Plato, you can't do, because you need someone with a mastery of the work, and you can't do it without the Balboa translation of Plato, because all past translations of Plato have been done by people with pathologos and a lack of understanding of what the heck he was saying. So they're all shit. If you do philosophy at university, I'm sorry, you've wasted your money. I'm not going to say that because I don't want to face people's confusion and defensiveness, but it's true. How the heck can you understand how this activity, pulling out the relevant terms of the logos and truth, based on the text of Socrates, organizing it in a dialectic, comparing the two? How can you do that if there's no word logos in the text? You can't. All other non-Balboic translations of Plato and Socrates do not include the keyword logos. Considering the human quest is the movement from the pathologos to the logos, what the fuck was going on there? So we call that the great betrayal of philosophy. The removal of certain keywords like self, logos, and mistranslating being as forms. So they teach at university, Plato thinks that there is a form of a chair in heaven. No. The word is eidos, which is aspects of beholding. And there ain't no chairs. It's things like sameness and likeness and eternity and infinity and being and beauty and truth. No chairs up there. So give me back my tens of thousands of dollars for my bullshit education that I had to unlearn when I left. So read the midwifery book, which we're doing here, and read a Balboa version of Plato. Otherwise, you're doing something else. Fortunately, we do both here on the channel.
I don't want to eat a monkey.
Which is good for us. Going to read Plato's works first before diving into midwifery. Just following the stream for now and learning something about it. Sure. All right. As you read, you might notice that there are some pages that you have to reread, or you get distracted, or you only get so far and then you give it up, or you think, nah, I don't really need to read Plato, or I don't really need to. You're starting to notice blocks. That's the start. Now, you have to really, really, really care about your goal to really see the stakes. What would happen if you can get enlightened in this lifetime through reading Plato and doing this? What are the stakes? What are the stakes of being trapped in ignorance for your soul when you die? Or even in this lifetime? Because when you start to notice your blocks, you have to care enough about the goal to face the blocks and not just give up or not settle for a secondary goal. So all the things we read that indicate the presence of a pathologos, which is what we're looking for, so we can gather clues and material, so we can do a dialectic on it. That's midwifery. Just like we read the Balboa version of Plato, so we can gather material, so we can do a dialectic on it. Same thing, isn't it? Only the pathologos is about your problems, and the logos is about what. So pathologos is about your personal problems. Every pathologos is unique, whereas the logos is about that which is eternal and true and universal and open to everyone. Therefore can unify all sentient beings, which is the next stage of evolution. Man the maker, we can make shit, to man the caretaker of our planet. And then, of course, there are higher stages beyond that of evolution. So, I'll pull it up actually. So, last chapter, I scratched myself with my pen. In the last chapter, I'll pull it up on the screen. Da-da-da-da. So, the signs and characteristics of encountering the pathologos are the following. 1. Setting secondary goals as if they were primary. Go for the highest. If you're not, it's a clue. Write it down. Oh, I wanted to do this, but then a voice came in and said, no, it's too hard, or no, you're too stupid, or no, that's a girl thing, and you're a boy, or only boys can do philosophy. Write it down. These are the clues we're looking for. This is the material that we use on our dialectic we call midwifery. Practical issues as a significant goal in one's life. Are you still only doing BMX, or are you also doing philosophy and midwifery? If you're not, keep moving forward until you realize the significance of it. Failing to achieve your goals with excellence. Did you overcome your pathologos block to ride in the big BMX race because you drank a few beers? That's not excellence. One way of calming your nerves, but or maybe you cheated to get across the finish line. That's not excellence. Or maybe as you were winning the race, a bunch of pathologos blocks and tangents came up and you didn't write them down. What the hell is the point? When you have a dream, you can win a BMX race in your dream, but when you wake up, does it mean anything? Does it matter? Do you even remember? Do you remember your previous lifetimes? Maybe you did win the big race in the previous lifetime, but who cares? Do you remember it? Did it make a difference? Why then do you think the point of the BMX race is winning the race? If you're not going to remember it after you die, because you don't remember what happened. Unless you see that the physical activity is secondary, the primary activity is to surface what you need of your pathologos, to see what your soul was carrying before you were born, preventing you from taking an opportunity for higher development in reality. Therefore, you had to incarnate into this dimension, which is the only place where you can learn understanding and the logos and the dialectic, which can be used to remove that false belief about yourself and reality your soul was carrying that prevented you from going further. Is what we read last time in chapter 2. Here. So excellence. It's not about the race. Sure, fun, but you've forgotten about it tomorrow, next year, or when you die. Doing it with excellence brings in the logos, brings in the self, brings in your highest participation in logos and understanding. Therefore, if you're not incorporating your logos understanding of beauty when you're doing beautiful tricks, or you're not incorporating philosophical midwifery to deal with the blocks and tangents, then you've got a secondary goal, my friend, and a mark of a unsuspected pathologos that you don't even know you have. That's why we're mining. It's not addressing the problems that you already think you already know. No. If you knew your problems, you wouldn't have them. It's a big one. People think being right is virtue. Psychologists, teachers, professors, bosses, capitalists, tyrants, dictators, they're all ignorant. Of course they are. But they seem to lie about how confident they are and they get the money or the position of authority or whatever. That's the immature nature of our species. Don't fall for it. The first book of the Republic is about the difference between doing something for what it gives versus what it is. Oh, that's right. And yes, that's right. That's right. And in the Republic, when they say to Socrates, can you show me how this way of being that we're learning, true justice, can you tell me what justice is? But by the way, can we set the conditions of this puzzle that you're not doing justice because of how people relate to you? Because in this situation, everyone thinks you're unjust and they hate you. Is it still worth being just? So yeah, they're taking out what it gives you, or the extrinsic. Extrinsic means external. To focus on the intrinsic. What's the value of the activity itself? And very important, that's what we were talking about earlier today. Often when you do accept the quest to become rational, to enter the human race, to fulfill your purpose, to escape fate and find destiny, to be rational, just simply being rational makes you hated in our current world filled with baby humans. Evolutionarily speaking, language is new for us. We haven't figured this out. And so we're a slave to our pathologos. Which is why
no one seems to be learning or growing or addressing actual problems.
And we haven't realized.
There's only two options at the end of an argument. One, you're wrong, but now you always get to be right about that topic going forward. So you get to learn something, which is always a plus. Or two, you're right and you get to revel in being right.
These are the things we haven't realized yet.
It's a win-win. A win-win-win-win-win.
Yes, so good point. They said some wild stuff on that book, like, we must just pretend to be just. We mustn't just pretend to be just, but not... We must just pretend to be just, but not... Right, okay, so the other half of the puzzle that they're setting out for Socrates to do for them, by the way, a bunch of rich kids from a rich father, maybe we don't know how rich he is. He's a Cephalus at the start, the dad of these kids. I think he was known as an arms dealer as well. Very, very nervous because he lived a life of wealth and he spent the wealth, but now he's really old and on death, 1 foot in the grave, Socrates said. He's super, super nervous because he knows he hasn't spent his life doing this. So he quickly leaves the discussion to bribe the gods or do sacrifices to the gods to buy his way into heaven. So these kids are saying, hey, Socrates, show us why it's best to do this. Master justice, master the logos, and remove the pathologos. They don't know it's the logos and pathologos. They just think justice. Even when everyone hates you and thinks you're unjust. But then create a second person who is the most unjust but seems like he's just. Everyone thinks he's the justest person. Even priests celebrate his holiness, but he's so unjust that he gets away with it. Not even his wife knows that he's lying to everyone. Show how this person who can get away with scamming everyone, the biggest scammer, Trump, Elon Musk, you name it, how their life is worse than someone like Socrates, who is just. No, they wouldn't use Socrates back then, but we can use him now. But is hated by everyone. But people don't like him because they challenge their pathologos. And until we're doing midwifery, our pathologos rules us. What does the pathologos do? Tries to silence the logos. How do you do that? Not with reason, because you can't. Because it's wrong. But if you kill the person talking, that's what they did to him. So that's the demand they make to Socrates, who they kidnap, by the way, at the beginning of the Republic. Which is a bit strange. Is kidnapping justice? Why does it start that way? Some of them did have great questions. Oh, yeah. And each of the different people that Socrates talks with, you might be able to recognize there are different levels of development. Like, I think it's Polymarchus. He's just a hothead. He was the one who wanted to jump in, and he was like, oh, you know, these people, you're having a good discussion, it's rational, and then you get that guy who's like, he just wants to yell at you, and he doesn't know why, but he just hates what you're saying. The streamers that we watched on our watch along, that's what they're dealing with. There's a Israeli propagandist streamer on Twitch, or on YouTube now, I think he's off Twitch, named Ethan Klein, and he always, whenever there is a streamer speaking reason, even his former best friend, he gets seething. He doesn't know why he hates them, and he has to lie to hate them, and he does. He just lies. He projects all his problems onto them and then gets mad at them for his own problems. He doesn't know why, though. He knows he's lying, but he thinks it's inevitable and right. Because that's what the logos does to the pathologos. Which is another reason why we can make the case that midwifery and removing our pathologos is more important than philosophy. Because you could run into the reincarnation of Socrates, but if you haven't done any work on your midwifery, you'll hate him. And you might punch him, or you might vote to have him killed, while thinking you're doing the right thing. And if you ever have kids, they're getting the same bullshit you got. The family curse, the cycle of violence. And when you are trying to reach your most important goals, the more effort you put in, the more effort you're actually putting in against your benefit. This effort, remember we talked about the authentic self being an effortless, automatic seeing of the logos and responding spontaneously with the full force of your being most appropriately for the circumstances without thinking or planning. Being in the zone, the ideal of the samurai. Being on fire in basketball, we call it. No effort. No effort. But until we get there, which you only get there through the pathologos, you think, oh, to do well, I have to put an effort. My teacher said, you're not paying attention. And you were. I am. No. And then you put in effort. Oh, I squeeze my face so it shows you that I'm paying attention. Oh, yes, that's the effort that I want. Or stupid sports coaches. Run around all game. Show effort. Or do laps. Show effort. Bollocks. It's the opposite. It's effortless. It's supposed to be effortless if you're a decent coach. So as you put effort into what's most significant to you, you're actually harming yourself, because what you're putting effort into is your pathologos that you think is good, that you think is yourself, that you think is reality, you think is benefiting, but the more you try, the worse you're going to be. That's the comedy or the tragedy of human condition. It's tragic because you're trying your best to be your best, but you're actually doing the most harm to yourself and anyone you care about. If you're not doing midwifery, if you haven't developed a way of being where because midwifery isn't a one and done thing, it's a relationship. Pierre Grimes was doing midwifery until he was 99 years old, and he invented the thing or rediscovered the thing. It's an everyday thing. It's a relationship thing. It's a way of being. If you don't have that way of being, of approaching puzzles or problems, as well as puzzles about the logos, with the dialectic way of relating, not debate, not arguing, not fisticuffs, not genocide, but conversation, following question and answer, with one person leading, but both are really following the logos. If that's not your way of being, you're going to be shooting yourself in the foot no matter how much effort you put in. And you're going to pass on your illness to others. And the more important the goal, the worse it's going to be. And if you ever run into Socrates, you'll feel like punching him right in the face or sentencing him to death, which is wild, but happened. So we can use that to make the case that therefore philosophical midwifery is more important than philosophy. Of course, it's that they're complementary and you don't have to pick one, but I think that's a good argument as to why midwifery first, or midwifery number one. But again, that's just my experience and my understanding from the reading and from doing this myself. I'm giving so many gifts for Mustachio and chat. Do both. Do only midwifery for a month. Do only philosophy for a month. Report back to us. Was one better than the other? Do you need both together? If you were to set a curriculum, would you set one before the other based on your month of experience? And if you do that, I'll get everybody in our community in the Discord to all chip in, and we'll buy you a coffee for your results. How's that sound? That was so hard to interpret. I didn't know if they were just joking, and I still don't know. Oh, good. Because there is humor in there. But good that you still don't know, because that means you're carrying it. That's the game. Good. Yes, carry them both. This could be a joke, or it could be profound. Carry both as you continue to read. Collect questions, collect hypotheses, carry them as you read. Well done. Good for you. But also, yeah, so we were talking about Polemarchus. Polemarchus was that hothead, right? He wanted to, I need to jump in. And Socrates said, I was scared, because every time I was talking with this other guy, this Polemarchus was over my shoulder trying to jump in. Until he just did. He just blurted out, Socrates, you're wrong, and you're stupid, and you don't know what justice is, and I'm going to kick your ass. And Socrates is said in the book, I was scared. I didn't know what to do. He was like an animal. And I said to him, didn't mean to upset you, and I want to be friends, and you're scaring me right now, and then they talked. And Polemarchus had that view of justice that Meno had about virtue, that it involves doing good to your friends and harm to your enemy. So both angry Polemarchus, by the way, I think Polemarchus is named after a pole arm, which is a kind of weapon, because he's an aggressive person, he's a fighting person, his name. So these little clues with their name that you can get if you read the Balboa. Anyway, he ends up having a conversation with Socrates, and he asks him the line of question, so what if you're mistaken about your enemy? Is that justice? Because you said it was doing harm to what you thought your enemy was, but you're actually harming your friend. How can that be just? Guess you're right, Socrates. But justice is good, right? Yeah. And good things make things good. Like hot things make things hot, and cold things make things cold. Absolutely. If you harm someone, are you making them more good or more bad? Well, you're making them worse. Right, like you beat your horse, you are hurting the horse. You're not making it more virtuous horse. Right. So therefore, if people are made bad by harming them, and justice is good, can justice involve harming people? Or harming your enemies? No, it can't. And Socrates says to Polemarchus, then we are of one mind. We are together. And you and I, we will go to war against anyone who says otherwise. Right, Polemarchus? Right, Socrates. We're of one mind. We're together because we went through the dialectic that Socrates led because of his art. That can also be applied to removing their false beliefs and as well as the truth. He didn't get into midwifery proper. He didn't go to the cause of his false belief of justice. But he recognized it, and he did the dialectic applied to the logos, came to a conclusion in his language. You have to that's where he's at. So at the conclusion, then you and me we'll pick up arms and we'll do battle against anyone who disagrees with our conclusion that justice can't involve harming people or harming your enemies. Now, Socrates was well known as a great warrior for, obviously, the ideal of the samurai. If that's the state of self that he was in, of course he's going to be a great warrior when he was in the army. But he doesn't mean that. That's Polemarchus's language. Let's both of us go to arms to defend the logos. So even these hot-headed or spirited people can be servants of the logos, can be followers of the logos, can be protectors of the logos. It's for everyone. But yeah, so that's Polemarchus, but then there's Glaucon there as well. He's different. Then there's the other names that I can't remember. But perhaps every different person represents a different level of development. And if you keep that idea as you read, you can wonder, how far can Socrates go? Is he limited by how many people he has there and how far they've gone? But it's the same idea. Once there's a mastery of the art, you'll be able to recognize, oh, you're a Polemarchus type, or you're a Glaucon type, based on the Republic. Now, of course, at the end of the Republic, he gives you actual categories. He uses the analogy another logos to talk about states of government, because he's using the city as a metaphor for our soul. So what starts with Polemarchus and Glaucon and Aristodemus becomes the philosopher king, or the aristocratic governance of a city as a metaphor or analogy for the soul. The timocratic, and so on. But yeah, good insights. Keep going. Projection, yes, projection. And he said in the chat, the wildest thing I could have ever read. Ooh. What's the wildest thing you could ever read? Justice is whatever is in the interest of the stronger party in any given state. I was speechless after reading this. Very well done. Yeah. Do you know of any current world leaders who think that justice is whatever is in their interest because they're the strong ones? They're the winning team? Do you know any people who were very outspoken against Trump and called him a tyrant? One of those kinds of government Socrates talked about. Until he got into power and now they lick his boots. All of a sudden, tariffs are good and capitalism is good and extreme wealth inequality is good and removing all public and starving children to death in the street is good and genocide is good. Whatever is in the interest of the stronger party is an idea of justice that we can see in many of these sycophants and even leaders currently. In other words,
no one seems to be learning or growing or addressing actual problems.
yes, he was carrying the totalitarian and authoritarian gene 2,000 years ago. Isn't it wild? We haven't progressed. Now, using our understanding of the human journey, what's our journey? We forget where we came from and why we came here. So we don't know why we're here. We're in a video game. We don't know the rules or the goal. It's one level of forgetting that we have to overcome through remembering through the logos. But before you can do that, there's another level of learning to do with a different amnesia. As a baby, you are on that journey to remember and relearn, but you forget that journey. You forget that quest. When you pick up the path of logos, that's what you sacrifice. You sacrifice the real quest you were on. To instead gain a blind loyalty to the pathologos, false belief about justice and virtue and self and reality, and a kind of irrational hatred of your own learning or the logos. Only because it's what you really want to do, which is what you were doing before your pathologos. So 2 levels of amnesia. This, by the way, when you get to the cave analogy, you can look for it there. So given our understanding of this movement that all humans are in, this is our game, then we might be able to use that to make sense of how come, if Socrates told us all this 2,000 years ago, why did we swing so hard back in the opposite direction? That's our theme today, right? The streamers talking about all they are doing is telling the truth and helping people, and the people they are helping are angry at these streamers for participating in reason angry at them for wanting to understand causes, angry for them to speaking up against the pathologos that is doing genocide in the world. Just introducing simple, basic reason and reflection caused such an angry, violent response to just everyday street. They don't even know about the logos. The counterattack. So all of these different principles that we're learning will allow us to make sense of how come we learned this 2,000 years ago, but we've gone the other direction. Because if we are to introduce this way of being, that's our human way of being, our right and our natural state of being, then we have to expect all of those principles, the counterattack, the anti-logos, the ignoring, mocking, threatening, ganging up, and eventually exiling and maybe killing people who share the logos, the blind loyalty to your own family clan, the blind loyalty to a dictator or tyrant if he's similar enough to your pathologos, like Putin is to the Russians, Hitler is to the Germans, and Trump is to the Americans. We have to expect this as we introduce this way of being in our own lives and relationships and globally. So we have to answer this question: how come 2,000 years ago we knew this, but we've gone the wrong way? So that once we introduce the truth again, we can expect the counterattacks. Oh, we realize that we can live in a heaven on earth if we replace capitalism with the logos. All of the pathologos ridden people who capitalism is similar enough to their family pathologos, they're going to come out of the woodwork and they're going to try and kill you, because that's the irrationality and immaturity of human beings until we formalize and institutionalize midwifery, share it around the world. Gotta be aware of this. And ourselves, as we read this book, you will hit a point where you're like, oh, I don't like this. Or this is dumb. Or I'm so tired. Or I should be doing I should be being efficient. I should be practical things. All of this stuff. Expect it. Do not blame yourself. Do not blame yourself if you blame yourself. But if you do blame yourself, because you understand that blame is automatically pathologos. You can't even begin when you're blaming or you're condemning. The fact that you know that, if you catch yourself doing it to yourself, write it down. You don't have to listen. It's not literally true. You don't have to believe it anymore, but you write it down because it's being sent to you as a message. So expect it. No need to blame yourself. If you do, don't blame yourself, but write it down. And keep going. Hang in there. Don't give up. Keep going. Keep moving forward. Those streamers we watched, one of them said something really nice that I like, and I've been thinking about since they said it. Even a small amount of progress in the field of the human mind is always worth it. They were talking about, I think, research into curing dementia. And they went on to say, if you have dementia or you're not cognitive, if you have cognitive impairment, you can't take care of yourself and you can't do all these other things. It's so important. So if you can just make a little contribution in the realm of the mind, it's infinitely worthwhile. So important. So hang in there and try and contribute as anything to this, to the logos, to the mind, to understanding the mind and understanding how to cure illnesses that affect the mind. Pathologos is the root cause of those illnesses. Any small contribution to health of the mind is worthwhile, number one. Number two, don't give up. Don't give up. Hang in there for as long as you can. And hopefully there'll be some good people around that can support you and encourage you to keep hanging in there. Keep going for your reading when the pathologo says do something else. Keep going. Or don't brute force it, of course. Listen to your mind, take the notes, collect them, and go back to it. Maybe have a coffee and go back to it. Also, don't be like Polymarcus. Right. Or if you are, hook up with a friend from the community and say, hey, I kind of noticed that I think it's really good to fight everyone. Can you practice the dialectic Socrates had with Polymarcus with me?
Wow.
That is definitely...
It's a win-win.
Definitely win-win. You get to benefit from the dialectic because you recognize that your way of being is not the ultimate, so you can progress because you have a familiarity with Polymarcus. And they get to practice being a dialectician.
It's a win-win.
It's a win-win. Yeah, good reflection. So, setting secondary goals as if they were primary is a mark of a pathologos to be watching out for as we do this. Making practical issues the significant goals of one life, failing to achieve with excellence, not preparing adequately for the goals. I always think about that whenever I go out to play music. I think I had a dream. I did dream analysis with Pierre once, and there was something about music, and I didn't have enough guitar picks or something. And Pierre Grimes, the author of this book, recognized, oh, I didn't know it at the time. So how did he know to focus on the guitar picks of this particular dream? So, I suppose the most efficient way of addressing your pathologos and helping your reading is dream analysis. Because the dreams are unpacked again through the dialectic, another opportunity to practice the dialectic. But they are messages sent to you specifically about clues for your pathologos and help in your reading. Or if you're not reading yet, it will direct you to get into some goddamn reading. You're not here to dig holes or build statues for tyrants or earn bucks. You got the logos. Somehow they survived like 3 different burnings of the Library of Alexandria, I think. Somehow they survived, and we have them. And now we have the midwifery book. Yeah, he could use that energy to confront people in a way more productive way. That's interesting, because that was the theme of the watch-along from yesterday, our first watch-along of the stream, of the channel. They were talking about, needing to be aggressive because sometimes the right-wingers and the fascists and the Nazis and stuff, they can be very forceful, which can appear like their knowledge, to the ignorant people. So if their job is to spread ideas of understanding and help them out of being brainwashed by Nazis, they also have to be forceful. But also the trolls and the right-wingers and stuff, they make fun of people who use reason and want to help others. So they'll get into conversations and the good person will be trying their best to use words for reasoning, and then they think, I've won the conversation because I'm just going to use words stupidly. I'm going to nitpick. I'm going to show no rationality in this conversation to tank the conversation, to teach that reasoner a thing or two. Bad faith actors. Anyway, so these people make fun and they're loud and forceful. And the point was, why do they get to have fun? Why do only the shit people get to have fun and make jokes in life? Why can't us good people make fun of the pathologos? Make fun of the absurdity of them attached to their pathologos? The absurdity of ignorance. In other words, how do you, like you're saying, how do you artfully use your Polymarcus spirit? Which is interesting because that's something that came up in the Alcibiades when he said, when Socrates finally talks to Alcibiades and he says, look, you have so much spirit that you drive everyone away. Even people who have good spirit have tried to approach you and like be friends with you and stuff, or even like romance you, but you're so spirited that they couldn't even handle you. But I'm suspecting that it's that spiritedness that Socrates made Socrates look out for Alcibiades in the first place. Maybe. I find it hard to interpret dreams. Good. Because we don't do dream interpretation. Interpretation, of course, means to project what isn't there or to leave out what is. We do dream analysis, which means there is an objective, understandable, universal truth. Anyone can find it. But you have to unpack it, because dreams are an example of analogy. What we've been talking about today. When you dream about having soup with a dragon, it's not literal, obviously. The relationship, so let's go back to the analogy here. Let's delete this chicken scratch. Look at that. So we're going backwards through time. So, in a similar way to what we're learning here, we can say the dragon is to the soup, just like something is to something in your everyday world. So the first step in dream analysis is to recognize the kinds of relationships or drama that are being played out in your dreams are similar to or reflect the everyday drama you're living in your everyday physical world. That's the first thing. It's important because it's the first step to even give a shit about dreams. Otherwise, you're like 99.99% of people out there who don't think about dreams. And if they do, they think, oh, it's just physical. It's the chemistry of your brain. It's just your brain sorting out your day's events. All this sort of nonsense. That's all interpretation. So, if there is an actual analogy and meaning, in the same way Socrates or Plato and Pierre Grimes writes his texts a certain way, with a beginning and introduction, a body and a conclusion at the end, or DDAS, so too is dream analysis. So too is your dream, and so too is the approach to unpacking the dream. In other words, to get the benefit from dreams, you have to practice the dialectic. Ideally with a friend, or someone from this community who's learning it too. That's most ideal. But of course, if it's just you, do it anyway. Is there a system to identify the logos in dreams you have? Yes. The dialectic, my friend. Or does it come naturally? No. Quite the opposite. Your natural interpretation or reaction will be, which is interesting because when you do I've done dream analysis for a long time. One thing you can do is you ask the dreamer, the person who brings the dream, what do you think the meaning of the dream is? And it'll seem obvious to them that it's this. And then you go through the process, the skill and art of dream analysis, which again is the same dialectic that applies to the logos in philosophy, to the pathologos in midwifery. It also applies to dreams or dream analysis. Oh yeah, and mythology, of course, if you want to write a story. Oh yeah, and music follows the same pattern. Oh, and the way the planets move, and so on and so on. So you tell a person, what do you make of the dream? And they say, well, this dragon ate my soup. Clearly it was telling me that, hey, if I don't eat the soup, some dragon is going to eat it for me. It's telling me to hurry up and eat and reach my goals, something like that. Now, After going through the process, during dream analysis, they'll be reflecting on themselves and the dreams in new ways, seeing new things, gaining new insights, hopefully gaining a relationship with their own mind and their own dream master. But then when they come to see the thing about the pathologos, they'll see how it plays out in the dream, they'll see how it plays out in their everyday life, and they'll see how it plays out all the way through their past, so in their present and all the way through their past. And then you'll say, hey, by the way, this false interpretation and pattern that plays out in your present, plays out through your past, we can predict it's your future, that's your fate. You will die of alcohol poisoning just like your old man or whatever. However, it's fated. You can predict how your life's going to be because you relate to the present as if it's the past. That's the problem. That's the problem. But then you can say, well, hang on a second. You've seen it in the dream. You've seen it in your present. You've seen it in the past. You've seen how it will play out in the future. You've seen how it even applies to your highest spiritual goals of logos. Does it also apply to how you first made sense of your dream? And they'll often say, oh shit, when I said it was obvious that the dream was telling me this, that false interpretation is evidence of that exact same problem. Which is amazing and cool, but also brings to light the amazing symmetry of the logos. The messages are coming at all times in all places and reflecting. The same problem reflecting through your life is reflected in your dream, reflected in the actual activity of dream analysis. Maybe you're doing dream analysis and you throw your pages up in the air and say, oh, I can't handle this anymore. It will reflect the same problem you're looking at. It will come up in the talk. Now, we'll get to that in the book, but in the book later it says, not everyone is at that level of understanding of pathologos and of midwifery, and to really appreciate that level of insight, that their first interpretation is the exact problem that the dream was pointing to. But if they are familiar enough, you can point that out and it can be really helpful. If you feel more emotion in the dream, there's probably a logos present. Logos is always present. Logos is the intelligibility of reality. You are in a reality right now. You don't know where you came from, why you're here, where you're going, what you should be doing. Yet, because of the two levels of amnesia, the fact that this reality is understandable, that's the logos. The fact that your problems are understandable, that's the logos. Intelligibility itself is the logos. So the fact that your dreams are so magnificently crafted, you never get bored. Like even the best Tom Cruise movies, sometimes people get bored. Some of them are rubbish, and you never get bored in your own dreams. It's always different, always new. There are never two dreams the same. Always helpful, always profound, always what's most important for you to see. So it's all logos. Which is interesting because that contrasts with your everyday fantasies and daydreams, which usually reflect your pathologos. So the two play complementary but different roles. So yes, so in dreams there is the logos or the intelligibility or the structure that we can unpack. There's also states of mind, what you're calling emotions. So the states of mind are a feature of dreams. And of course, in your problems, there are different states of mind. So we talked about the pathologos binds you to fate because there's one state of mind that you can be in the situation. You can only be angry. You can only be scared. You can only be timid. You can only be a coward, whatever it is. There's only one way of relating. Now, this state of mind might show up in your dreams with the dragon. People can have higher states of minds. They can have enlightenment experiences of pure reality or pure being or mind, which is the highest experience for Taoists. They think it's enlightenment. You can even have a state of mind beyond that enlightenment. That's beyond even qualities. This can be very hard to see and remember and acknowledge the significance of, because while pure being is the height of the logos, all of the best logos, beauty itself, justice itself, being itself, bliss itself, that which is beyond it is beyond experience, a different kind of logos. So we talked about analogy. You use one thing that you are familiar with to understand another logos. Analogy. Analogy. Because there is something like, not the same, there's some sameness and difference. There's something like the way the copy relates to the model that applies to this different world, the way our present relates to our past. Now we're saying, now this principle allows the logos that you develop in this physical world, especially when you're, by doing dream analysis, midwifery, and reading the Balboa version of Plato, when you do have this experience, the logos comes with you. It's different. It's not the three-dimensional world of time and space. It's eternal, beyond time. No, eternal, beyond space, infinite beyond space, eternal, beyond time. But it upgrades. The logos does go all the way up, so the logos is represented on each level all the way down, including your dreams, including your problems, including the text we're reading today. So yeah, states of mind and logos are key features of dream analysis. Just like seeing your problem. It's your state of mind that will usually alert you to your problem. I got on my BMX for the big race and then I got extremely anxious. State of mind. Oh, what logos came up? What thoughts came up associated with that state of mind? You need both. Good questions. Good questions. Or some sort of archetype in the dream. Yes. Now, so long as you recognize the archetypes are being. There's people like Jung who haven't realized the logos and they think, oh, you dreamt about a dragon? Well, that's the archetype of the great villain. Now, if you do that, and some people have, like Jung, it will only work sometimes. Like, I think he found that his dream analysis only worked with British people like him, or something like that, or people from England. Because people from France have a different idea of what dragon means to them. It's not that kind of archetype based on the physical world. The archetypes or eidos apply to being. Or levels of states of mind and logos, the two together, you could say are states of being. Archetypal states of being from nihilism to materialism to on and on and on until we get to the one self. So long as you recognize these are the archetypes and not common mythology from the everyday world, then you're on the right track. I need to get better lighting. It looks so pasty. We should ask, like, what is the soup to us? Yes, that's a good question. So that's what you'd ask. So once you're doing dream analysis, let's pretend you're doing it with somebody else and it's their dream. So you've written down dragon and soup and maybe you've drawn it on the board so they can see it. And Now you can say, yeah, what does dragon mean to you? Good question. Absolutely right. Because every feature and character in your dream is personally significant to you. Again, it's not literal, it's an analogy. Yeah, what does it mean to you? Absolutely. That's the question that you ask yourself or the pregnant party. And the same to the dragon. Then I think we can start doing that. What do you think? Yep. By that I mean the dialectic. Yep. Yeah, so now the story when I went into a room and there was a dragon eating soup. The dragon means loyalty and the soup means, warmth or something like that. And that reminds me of what happened yesterday. Now you're on the right track there. I've read Jung. His dream analysis is not that reductionist. It's actually pretty deep, sorry, but I felt the need to correct you. Well, no. I mean, it's just this. You either know the logos or you don't. If you don't know the logos and you're like Jung and you are stuck in the non-logos, remember, the dialectic also represents not just all these things, but also represents the levels of personal development. So if you are... Have we written them up yet anywhere? These are the hypotheses of Parmenides. So we're talking about the human condition where... I've got so many notes. Let's do new ones. Here we go. Here we go. So this is the dialectic applied to levels of personal development that we're going through as individuals and a species. Now, this is the what if the self does exist is. Now, there are 4 more categories if it doesn't exist, but we're not going to look at them right now. We're looking at the 4 positive ones. And this is where we are. The 4th hypothesis. This is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now these are the 4 that represent the dialectic. The one self sits atop. Why is that important? Well, to understand the meaning of dreams, you have to unpack its logos. That's here. Whoops. And the board's not working. Let me just... That's better. Nope. What's going on? There we go. So, the self logos need to unpack the dreams is here. Where we are as a species is here. Jung never crossed that line. That's why we read Socrates and Pierre. Therefore, if he recognizes that dreams are not literal, thank goodness he recognized that, and they might be metaphorical, his placement of the metaphors are cultural or the physical world. That's why it only worked with people of his who watched the same TV shows he watched. And so it just happens to get lucky sometimes. Yeah, a lot of people in England think of St. George when they think of a dragon. So it is more likely to think of dragons as an enemy or as nobility or something to do with royalty in England than it is to think of dragons that way in Japan. A very different idea. So all of the characters we read in the first chapter, Carl Jung, L. Ron Hubbard from Scientology, Albert Ellis from The Hero's Journey, Alan Watts from his work in spirituality, every single one of these people that Pierre Grimes met, he challenged them to make this leap. Hey, Albert Ellis was in cognitive behavioral therapy. So the model of psychotherapy that we learn at university is based on Albert Ellis's work, cognitive behavioral therapy. Same deal. Cognitive behavioral, you think your problems are behavioral? Oh, you're stuck in the physical world. You haven't discovered the logos. Same thing with Jung. You don't recognize the dreams are about your pathologos? What do you think it's about? What's he going to pick on? There are images in dream. Where else do you see images? The physical world. TV and stuff. Books. That's why it's so important for us to learn dream analysis and not dream interpretation. Dreams represent a specific thing. Yes, I mean, there might be layers, like the dream might have many layers, and which is the thing about dream analysis. You can spend so long. It's so rich. That's not how it does dream. Okay. How do you think Jung does his dream analysis? How was what I said not on? How was I missing the mark? How was Jung not thinking that dreams are archetypes of cultural significance? And how was he actually understanding the real meaning of dream analysis, which is nothing other than the logos and our messages about our pathologos? Now that's 80% of dreams. There are 4 other categories of dreams that we haven't got into, but this is the most important one. Because I'm pretty sure I'm right on this. Not that it's about being right, but just obvious. Like, if you don't know the logos, what are you going to do with a dream? It's like, oh, I got this this Japanese anime written in Japanese. I don't know Japanese myself, but I mean, I can tell you what I imagine it to be. That's dream analysis. That's dream interpretation. But if you see something that I don't see, please share it. I'd love to see it. How cool would that be? But no, pretty much it's the same. But of course it is. If you don't know the pathologos and the logos, how are you? If you don't know the difference between interpretation and analysis, and how analysis reflects the logos and dialectic, what else are you going to do? Jung wasn't doing midwifery. He didn't understand the cause of human problems. He didn't understand the destiny of reality in life. The logos and pathologos. He is a cool figure to quote to make yourself seem smart. So if you're one of these guys...
Have you read Brand at all? Have you read Nagel? What about Scanlon? Have you read Scanlon or Scruton or Edmund Burke? Have you read C.S. Lewis? Have you read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe? Have you read Immanuel Kant? So you know Flicht.
What has this got to do with Bob's Burgers?
Do you practice self-love in a Kantian sense? Do you masturbate to Kant? Have you seen Infinity Wars? Have you even seen Age of Ultron?
So I think that could be a thing. Like if you can quote Jung and Nietzsche and all these sort of people like that guy did on that podcast. That was John H. Benjamin calling into the Majority Report. Majority Report is a fantastic YouTube channel. But yeah, that's not philosophy. That's how they teach philosophy. How do they teach philosophy? Opinions. How to quote enough authority. What's pathologos based on? Authority. What's tyranny based on? Authority. What's ignorance based on? Authority. What's religion based on? Authority. What's truth based on? Logos. There is no authority on logos. It's open to all. So yeah, if you have enough authorities you can quote, you can defend your pathologos beliefs and opinions. That's how they teach philosophy. To bastardize language to do the exact opposite that language is supposed to do. Why? Because we're babies. We haven't done what Socrates told us we need to do. We haven't gone from the level of groups based on images, the imitation of the self, pathologos groups. That's where we are. Notice, what do people say? Well, this must be true because the founding fathers said so. Because Trump said so. Because Marx said so. Groups, that's the pathologos. That's why our world is ruled by fascists and Nazis, but also religious like religious groups and stuff like that. The big Abrahamic religions and stuff. It's just manipulating people based on their own pathologos to fulfill the injustice and terrible fate of your pathologos. That's the game. That's why in chapter 1, the author asked,
No one seems to be learning or growing or addressing actual problems.
so what? So our species ends, or we make this jump, which is to the logos, which you can only do in midwifery and the Balboa version of Plato. Not because I chose them, but just because of the way things are. So if anyone who hasn't made that jump, of course L. Ron Hubbard won't understand problems, but made up his own theory. Of course Alan Watts doesn't understand spirituality, but has had various experiences and can make up his own theories, and he's a very good talker. Of course, who else we met? Albert Ellis got lots of fame and credentials in psychology. Of course, Carl Jung got lots of fame and credentials and money through his work. Of course, and so on and so on. One thing that the same of all of them is they're all below this line, because this is the logos line. It's also the ousia line. It's also the self line. These are 3 categories of self: excellence, ousia, and logos. By the way, even if no one else gets on board, you can still make this jump from the 4th hypothesis. Excuse me. You can make the joke. Here I am talking about the importance of humanity, but that's secondary. It's for you. So even if Jung happened to have a mysterious understanding of logos that he never shared with anyone or never used or never showed any evidence of, doesn't matter. It's for you to do. Oh, something in here. It's basically symbolic. Yeah, there you go. Personal and archetypal. Yes, I'm not disagreeing with you now. It's just that the way you described it was basically, oh, it's just a dragon, it must be the villain archetype. Yeah, well, I only say that because, from what I understand, it's been a while since I was into this, the work that he did on dreams had a limited amount of success. And the times that it was successful happened to be people from the same area. And we can understand why that's the case, because if you think that the images in your dream are not for you, but are just archetypes that exist in reality, like the dragon always represents, like the way that Jordan Peterson, I don't know if you don't know who Jordan Peterson is, I envy you. But there are a lot of people like Jordan Peterson who pretend to be intellectuals to misuse language and harm people in order to serve fascist right-wingers, usually for money and fame. Jordan Peterson is one of them. So he does this. He pretends that his interpretations, because he's real into Christianity, and he knows that the fascist right-wingers in America are Christian, because fascists play into people who have already sacrificed their own ability to think. That's what religion is, because as we read, supernatural beliefs are beliefs that there can't be any evidence. So why would you believe it? It's, another word for that is an absurd belief. So people who already don't know how to think and have been told that sacrificing your mind for authority, religious authority, those are the ones that the right-wingers, that's why Trump, who is the least Christian person, is selling Bibles and holding his Bible upside and say, oh, I love the Bible, my favorite book. Famously, he was asked, oh, what's your favorite passage? Oh, it's too personal. Oh, couldn't quote one passage from the Bible. He's lying, obviously. He's known for being they're lying. So people like that pretend Or maybe he believes his own bullshit. And he says, well, you know what? The Adam and Eve story, you know what? Like I saw this yesterday. I think today even. Jordan Peterson was saying, the devil is actually the North Star and the fallen angel and the other guy who he was in the interview with was like, oh yeah, but you know what? If the devil is the archetype for awakening of intelligence, according to Peterson, just I don't know where he got that from, then you know what that is? Awakening woke. And so the other guy's like, so the devil is woke. Because woke is the bullshit word that people use to indicate something other than my own pathologos ignorance. There's no actual definition of woke. It's just anything I don't like. Which is why we're stupid as a species. Brown people, I don't like that. Mexicans, I don't like that. Vietnamese, fucking stupid. Idiocy. So that's taking, pretending that there are physical archetypes of the physical world, when really the archetypes are non-physical. There is no... This is the problem with philosophy as well. Like when they teach philosophy, literally they'll say, well, there are these things called forms. Plato believed there was a spiritual form of a chair in heaven. No. Lies. Just lies and ignorance. It's not a chair. The archetype isn't an archetypal chair. The archetype is something like wholeness or infinity or beauty or justice or virtue or courage. Or the way of being, of mastering of the art of the logos, the human archetype. Anyway, so this is good because whether it's Jung or Albert Ellis if you're doing psychology, or Alan Watts if you're interested in mysticism, or L. Ron Hubbard if you're interested in Scientology, or who else did we talk about in the first chapter? Or Campbell, no, the guy who created the hero's journey. All of them are trying to infer or guess about true archetypes while not being aware of the logos. So they're going to refer to their pathologos and their cultural beliefs. Necessarily. Where else are you going to look? Being? Maybe you don't think that exists. Or maybe you've had the experience of higher levels of, but you falsely believe it's ineffable. Yeah. But it is interesting. That's why we use One Piece on the thumbnails for YouTube, because somebody said, wow, Pierre Grimes met Alan Watts and Albert Ellis and L. Ron Hubbard, and the list goes on. All of these like big figures known for being intellectual or spiritual or psychological elites. He's like Luffy, who runs into all of the elite people within the One Piece anime universe. Or Forrest Gump, who runs into all of these big figures in history. Difference being, when Pierre ran into them, it was always the same question. Hey, you're here. You want to go here? And it was always the same response. No way! Run away, run away, run away, run away. All ran away. All of them. Why? And if that's something that happened to all of these otherwise great figures, how can we understand the principle behind that so we don't run away? So we can do better than these people? Because it will come up. Why? If this is the our human condition to cross this line from groupthink. By the way, the one underneath groupthink is complete disconnection. So these are all ways of viewing reality where you do think the one exists, or God exists, or truth exists, or there is an eternal existence of something. This bottom one says, of course there is, but we are just ants. There is no connection. Why would an almighty intelligence care about us in our daily lives? Really, they care about us? They really care about what football team you want to win? Come on, don't thank God for your football game win. I don't know. There's a kind of logic to that. And then, of course, there's where we are now. There is something supernatural or spiritual or beyond the physical world, but we can't know it. We can't understand it. The best we can do is believe and to imitate it. Imitation. So there's a line here because the one self is on its own. But this pure being is imitated here in us holding hands and singing Kumbaya and feeling like we're a big group. This is my highest idea of oneness, to be in a group. Oh, and by the way, the people who keep you there are always conning you. They're always grifters. Anyone who says, just believe me, don't understand for yourself, they are liars and grifters. If you were a mechanic, or apprentice mechanic, and you said, why does the gas plug go there? Gas plug, spark plug. And the person you're learning from said, oh, just believe me. You would immediately run away from that mechanic. He's trying to train you to be his slave. Anyone who says, just believe me. Anyone who says, can I give you advice, which is just my dumb belief. Anyone who says beliefs are okay or you're entitled to beliefs or opinion are lying to you and conning you and scamming you. Sometimes knowingly for the bucks. Pay a tithe. Notice how all of the American evangelicals are rich and trying to scam money from the poor, just as Trump is doing, just as the whole American government is doing, cutting all the funds to everyone poor. So that's where we are as a species. Ain't no logos there. And we need to go, hang on a second, what are we imitating? And jump to here. What is this an imitation of? Well, hang on a second, maybe I can understand what these jerks told me is ununderstandable. So I can move from here to the dialectic, to the self, logos, and providence. The thing we are learning to master here in midwifery. That's the line. So misrepresentation of Jung's method. What was his method? Like the others you critique. No, not pride, just statement of facts. But again, as I'm saying, if there's something I haven't seen, please tell me. Otherwise, I just have to believe you when you tell me he did something different in dream analysis. You want me to believe that you? Then you are a grifter. You want me to stay at a level of belief. Why would I? To be polite? So you accept me as a friend? Into your group? Why would I believe you? If, however, you have some understanding or some evidence you can share or something you can point to, then we can both understand. Oh, you don't have to. I was a bit salty at the end. Oh, it's fine. It's cool. I apologize. Oh, no need. It was just because you sent some pathologos conflict in you. Right, projection. Be careful. You're very new to the word pathologos. Now, this is very, very, very important for everyone watching at home. Okay, so we know the pathologos functions to block the logos. So if these are the levels of development, you got the first, that's the one self or the good self. That's the highest self. experience of self, mind itself, pure being. That's the highest, that's the paradigm, that's the highest experience, mind knowing itself. The way it functions is the dialectic, and the self, which is the union of self, logos, and providence or care. And the pathologos is an identification with the group, which can only maintain if you are against the logos. So the pathologos has to trick you to shut down the logos. That's all it does. That's why it's a problem. It's a problem because it shuts down the logos, so you're bound to one way of being. How do you do that? How do you shut down the logos if you are yourself wrong? If you are irrational and immature and wrong? You can't do an argument.
The problem is that you can't reason someone out of a position that they didn't reason themselves into.
You didn't reason yourself into that position. So what do you have to do? Find a way of silencing conversation. You can do it with a genocide if you're Israeli. You can do it with sending people to concentration camps in El Salvador if you're a Republican in America right now. You can threaten your students with detention if they don't shut up and ask these tricky questions. Now, the one that people tend to use the most as soon as they learn the word pathologos is, that's your pathologos. You are wrong, sir. You have no fucking clue what a pathologos is. Do not throw it around so haphazardly. That's unfair to me because I am looking for my pathologos genuinely. It's unfair to the art because to identify a pathologos, you have to help the person realize there's a block to a most meaningful goal, see that it's actually wrong. You can't say you're wrong because I say so. No. You have to show how, hey, in the dream, I had $2 and I thought I could buy that $4 ice cream. You have to see there's a problem. You can't just say you're wrong. And you have to see that the problem is your inability to participate in reason in a different kind of a way. You're stuck in a certain state of mind and a certain belief. And then you can establish whether or not it happens to be a pathologos or not. Otherwise, what people tend to do is the pathologos, which rules you until you do this, you don't have it, it has you, will use your learning of the word pathologos to fuck you up and stop you from developing by attacking the person who can help you, Socrates or whoever, by saying, that's just your pathologos, Socrates. That's not you saying it. You don't know what the word is. That's your pathologos using it. Why? Because it's a catch-all. And I've seen this. That's why there are principles that we are learning to the art that you have to follow. Because once you start to learn about what you need to do to overcome your pathologos, which is in charge of you currently, because you're a human being who hasn't done midwifery yet, will use that awareness of the word to say anything that challenges it is just the pathologos, and therefore can be dismissed. You don't have to provide any evidence about Jung, any reason, any texts, you haven't even said anything about what his method is, let alone a link to the text or a quote, at least. You're just saying, believe me, if you don't, it's a pathologos. Or I feel maybe it's a pathologos. No. You got to provide the reason and evidence first. And this is for everyone. Because I have seen people who have been in this game for 40 years or more, as soon as they hit their ceiling of where they're at, all of a sudden everyone is in a pathologos. And you say, well, am I? Well, remember, we are here to find our pathologos. It's not a bad thing. We're on the treasure hunt to find it. Please share with me what you're seeing of this pathologos you speak of. And they say the same thing. Nah, you're not going to listen because you're in a pathologos. So I don't even have to tell you. You're just wrong. The word pathologos is used the most by the pathologos of people who are learning the pathologos unless they respect, or not, respect is a bad word, unless they appreciate the significance of principles. That's why when you do dream analysis or midwifery, because it's the most meaningful thing you can do, and as it shares in the logos as well, but it's the most meaningful thing you can do, and because you're sharing the logos, you will hit your block. As a midwife, you're being the best a human being can be doing midwifery. It's the best. It's the best skill. It's the thing we all need to be doing. Therefore, you will hit your blocks. You won't know you've hit a block. It will seem like you're right. It will seem like it's the only possible answer. And you'll be confused because how can you relate to this thing that the person that you're midwifing is saying? If you can't see it, you will be, what was the word? Confused and defensive. Yes, it will happen. That's why there are certain principles, like if you hit your block, you switch roles, and the person who was doing the dream analysis or doing the midwifery becomes the pregnant party. Or you bring in a third party. There are different techniques you can do because you have to expect your pathologos. And I just say that because I caught you doing something. It's not a blame game, of course. It's something that happens a lot. People misusing the word pathologos, but the pathologos misusing the word pathologos to prevent the logos. Just be careful. Be careful. But hey, if you did say, oh yeah, so Jung actually used this strategy and he outlined it on this thing and here are some examples. If I said, no he didn't, then you could say, oh, hang on a second. I think I was providing reason and evidence in a dialogue, question and answer kind of friendly thing, but you seem to shut down there. Did you notice that? Or were you blocked from the evidence and the reasoning? Could that be a problem? Now, if they can recognize it's a problem, then you can ask the next question, which is what? Is it a repeating problem? Because that's the kind of problem we're after. This kind of problem doesn't come up often. Did it come up yesterday? Did it come up last week? If it's not, then it's not a pathologos problem. It has to be cyclical and repeating. But yeah, we're getting there. But again, I'm not putting you down or anything or blaming. No blaming or condoning. But I am being forceful, like Polymarchus, in the best possible way. Because I have seen this particular principle, the use of pathologos by the pathologos to block the logos, the use of the word pathologos, block people who have been in this game for 40, 50, 60 years. And no matter what you say to them, no. Blocked. That's why principles are important. Understanding the principles of the pathologos and principles within the art itself. So, firm in the way that Socrates was firm with Polymarchus, but no like blame or anything. You did the thing that all humans do at some point. You were just lucky that you did it in front of me so I could pass this on from my experience. But then you'll have to say the same thing to your friend. Like if you have a friend, you get involved in this game, when they start to hit their blocks, they'll start throwing the P word at you. And you're like, hang on a second. No. I've been through this before. No. Let me explain something to you. And you'll give them the speech that I gave you. But good. Thanks for sharing. It's a good point. What I said, asking what the soup means to you and how you feel about it was done. Yes. Very good. Yes. Now, there are lots of different starting points to dream analysis, but that's a good one. Asking what the soup means to you and how you feel about it was the starting point of dream analysis. Yes. Very good. Now, let's expand. I'll expand on those two starting points. Now, whatever you remember of the dream, you will have gone through. I should probably write on the board. No, it's right. You will go through many different states of mind in the dream. So as the midwife, it's up to you to focus on one particular state of mind that hopefully you've done on, like, usually dream analysis happens with a blackboard or a whiteboard you got to write things down because you need to see it. And also because people forget what they've said and you need to point to it once. No, I didn't say that. Anyway, so you will maybe have the person will explain the dream. You come home from work in your hat, and then you eat a pie. And then you what happens next? Goodness. And then you go into your home, and then in your kitchen there's a dragon. Breathing fire. And then the dragon eats your soup. And you start to cry. Right, let's say that's the dream. I mean, there's more to it. There'll be but like, so here you're talking to the dragon, let's say. So you've got a state of mind here at the start, a state of mind when you went into your house, a state of mind here talking to the dragon, and a state of mind here when you're eating the soup. Which state of mind do you pick to ask them to open up the dream analysis? Which one do you want to explore? And why? Because there's a certain state of mind that's reflected in their everyday life, that's reflected when they try and read the Balboa version of Plato, that's reflected when they try and do midwifery or read the book that we're reading. There'll be one of those states of mind that's significant and reflected in the problems they're facing in their present. It will have a history through their past. And the dream might even say something about your future. Maybe you get eaten by the dragon or something like that. So which of those states of mind do you want to focus on as a possible exploration to uncover something about a pathologo state of mind? So yeah, good insight. Good insight. I'm not going to answer that question for you, but I'm going to throw it out there for you to wonder about. The other thing you said, other way into starting the dream is states of mind and what was the other one? Let me have a look in chat. Oh, yes. What does the soup mean to you? Again, so there's metaphors or what we call furniture in the dream. So you've got a thing of soup here. You've got a dragon here. You've got a house here. You've got that top hat here. Which of these items or metaphors do you want to ask? What does it mean to them? What does it mean to you? Of course, in the asking, there is an art to that because they're like, oh, I don't know. So you've got to draw it out of them, encourage them without giving them any answers, without giving them any words. So, what's it like? I don't know. When I say what's it like, I mean, what's it feel like? Oh, I don't know. All right. Could you use a metaphor? Is it like being caught in a waterfall? See, these are 3 different questions asking the same question. They might still be like, oh, no, I can't think of that. Oh, I didn't even know. Oh, this is silly. Let me ask you this question. Oh, the soup here. I know what it means to you. It means poison. Like, I picked something that's not going to hit. I don't want to, because that's what we talked about earlier in the series. You don't want to project your interpretation onto the person who is giving birth to the idea. Talked about the body horror film of the midwife forcing the pregnant person to give birth to their own baby, but it's half formed and it's a mixture of both. Oh, it's a crazy horror movie. That's what happens. So we have to, so one technique is like, oh, could it be this thing? That's the opposite, so you're not going to hit. But yeah, then the same question, which item are you going to focus on to apply this line of questioning in this encouraging, friendly way? Again, I'm not going to tell you the answer, but I don't know if there is an answer, but there isn't just one answer. Let's say it that way. But seeing as you hit the mark twice in one sentence, I'm going to give you this one. I'm going to give you another question about those 2 things to get you thinking. Carry that with you. And when I say carry it with you, sometimes years or decades. It's a good question. How do you open dream analysis? Yeah, good question. It's a fantastic chat today.
It's a win-win.
Okay, I'll explicitly explain what I meant when I accused you of pathologos. Oof, okay. And you can judge whether I'm using the term correctly. I questioned something you said because I didn't think it was true. And suddenly you seemed almost possessed by a complex. That's the projection. State of mind I was in. See, I was in a state of mind. If it was dream analysis, you could say, hey, what state of mind were you in here? Now, this influencing the pregnant party would be to give me your name for my state of mind. I would never use the word complex. It's yours. But again, we're not doing midwifery, so it's fine here, but just as an example. But here's fine. We're not doing that. Yeah, as someone who only follows famous thinkers trying to get rich. No. No. So, the famous thinkers is without the logos as your standard of truth. What do you have to point to? It's a puzzle. Like, people are puzzled by this. Some people say, well, the founding fathers, isn't that what we say? But then, yeah, but didn't they have slaves? Oh, shit. Well, what's our standard of truth then? If there's no logos because we haven't crossed that line to admit there isn't a true, objective, non-physical reality that can be known and we need to know. That's truth. Without that, what's left? People who imitate that. That's the people who cosplay as authorities. The way philosophy is taught is just do that. Just list names while you end up just defending your own dumb opinions and beliefs. That's what everyone does in philosophy. Sorry if you're in philosophy. But don't take that as a criticism. Take that as an opportunity to do this instead. And if you're not motivated by seeking the logos, often people are. There are 3 parts of the soul that we explore. Reasoning is what we want to use. In your heart and your belly. Now, the people who refused Pierre Grimes's challenge to go beyond their opinions about psychology, philosophy, spirituality, and dream analysis, go beyond their opinions to discover the truth and the logos, Many of them refuse, which means they're not motivated by this. Many of them refuse because they make a lot of money. Like Albert Ellis, cognitive behavioral, very well paid, lots of... And he said specifically to Pierre, if I was to go down this line to make cognitive behavioral therapy just simply cognitive, get rid of the behavioral physical stuff, I would lose my job, I would lose all my awards, I would lose my position, my title, my money. So why would you want to lose all that? That's why we have to have the most personally meaningful goal first. Because otherwise, why give up all your awards? Just for some crazy philosopher's theory that there might be something better. Screw him, I want to get paid. That's what they do. We can be better. Who shares quotes to appear smart? No, that wasn't you. That was the institution. The institution teaches people that. Trump do when they... Yep. Now whether this is truly pathological might be wrong and you can judge. No, no, I don't think it's a pathological. I think you thought I was describing you when I was describing a principle. So when I say if I were to believe you because you dropped a name or whatever, I would be falling into that principle of accepting beliefs and opinions over understanding and reason. Some people do that on the right, usually money and fame, or philokrimatos, love of desire or love of wealth, philotimos, love of fame. We want to be motivated by the part of our soul that loves learning, philomathesis, because if we love learning, only then eventually we can graduate from loving learning to philosophy, which is love of wisdom. Notice, it's not the first thing. You gotta start by loving learning more than fame and money. And all those people who refused Pierre's question, again, not criticism, not blaming them. We have to understand why. Even the best of us have a pathologos-based negative reaction to being introduced to leaving our opinions and beliefs and images and money and fame and images of our loved ones and whatever support networks we have based on allegiance to this loyalty to these groups. Gotta sacrifice all that. No one wants to do that. Almost no one. Socrates did. Pierre did. Pierre told me once, he said, look, I'm the most hated man in the world. Like in the 60s, I met up with the Black Panthers who were fighting. They were black people in America fighting to be seen as human beings by the racist white people of America in the 60s. Malcolm X and Martin Luther King and all that. You think Pierre said to these Black Panthers, the black Americans fighting for basic human decency and rights, you think you're hated because all of the white people in America hate you. I'm a philosopher. I challenge everyone's way of being. I'm the most hated person in the world. Again, a principle. Because we have to appreciate that, acknowledge that, so that when we face it, we have to be nice to ourselves. Yeah, it's difficult. We want to run away. Jung did. Alan Watts did. Albert Ellis did. Joseph Campbell did. They all ran away. Who didn't? Socrates with Diotima, Pierre Grimes. Who else? It ain't personal, but it is true. So we need to acknowledge that so we can do better and be nice to ourselves as we go through that journey, and nice to our friends and stuff. Encourage them. Keep going. I know you want to run away. I know you think you're not good enough. Blah, 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 blah. You have to go through everything. For example, I see a girl in a dream. I ask myself how I feel about her, how I see she feels about me, how I feel about that for every element of the dream. That's part of my process. Interesting. Be interesting to compare the different. I keep assigning you the same homework. Do this one and then do this one and then compare the two and then send it to us on Discord, and we will take donations, everyone in the community, to buy you a coffee in payment for your comparative essay about 2 sorts of dream analysis. That's fair, right? Yes. Good. I think that's a great start, because I feel about the girl projection of her and someone who is acting badly towards me in the dream, thinking about how he might feel towards me could also be helpful. I'm sure this is an incomplete dream analysis, but it's my starting point. Yeah, see? Good for you, yeah. It's a good starting point, yeah. The fact that you are open to the intelligibility and care or providence in your dreams, that's a win. The fact that you're trying to remember your dreams, that's a win. The best technique apparently is to record it into audio, like you got like an audio app on your phone, as soon as you wake, before you do anything else. Open your eyes, press record. Oh, there was a dragon and he ate all my soup and I was pissed and he smelled like my dad and I said, get out of here, you stinky dragon. Any words, any states of mind, any drama, any drama, states of mind, activity. Words are very important. Record all that. Now, seeing as I've given you 8 different comparative essays, I'll give you one more. Later on in the day, record your dream, like write it out just from memory. And then after that, go back to your audio recording and try transcribe it word for word. Or if you've got a good AI audio to text generator, use that and then, proofread it, because sometimes it gets the words wrong. And compare your memory later on in the day from the actual audio transcript. And you might notice some things different or missing. That is helpful for you to understand the significance of recording straight away and the significance of training yourself to remember your dreams every day. But also, it will tell you something about your puzzle. Why did I leave that out? Why did I not remember that? Why did I not remember the significance of that? That was actually a high state. Why do I forget the times I do well? Etc., etc. So one more comparative essay for you, and I might be asking a lot from the Discord community, but we'll send the basket around one more time to get the money together for a cup of coffee for you for that comparative essay as well. You are going to be drowning in coffee, my friend. Well, this has been a really fun, different kind of a stream, but really fun and really cool. We were in the middle of going through, let's just finish this list, as these are markers for the presence of an unsuspected pathologos that we are trying to find and practice the dialectic on with our friends. And then we share on Discord and scam a free coffee from the rest of us because we benefit from seeing your review. Setting secondary goals as if they are primary. Making practical issues the most significant goal in your life. Failing to do so with excellence. Failing to meet your goals with excellence. Not preparing. Forgetting your guitar picks. Losing concentration and energy. At what point in your reading did you find that happen? Being unable to resist distraction. Squirrel. Blaming others. Excuses for not achieving. Unable to maintain the goal. You start to have some success in reading or in your state of mind or in your vision, you let it slip. Functioning ideally in crisis, but experiencing stress, anxiety before and after such events. Pierre Grimes would tell a story about working for some company that was interested in motivation, understanding motivation, and he studied paratroopers and how they dealt with stress. And he found what was interesting is the highest level of stress for paratroopers who jump out of planes was not right before the jump as the company thought it would be, but right before they got onto the plane. So functioning well in a crisis, but experiencing stress and anxiety before or after, with the paratroopers it was before, is an example of a problem. Letting opportunities go by, or sabotaging your opportunities for success. You meet Socrates and you punch him in the nose. That's because you got a pathologos, my friend. So these are things to look out for. And it goes on to say the difference between goals and dreams is you have steps for your goals. Write them down, which is important here because you can identify, just like there were different stages in the dream, you might be able to recognize the similarity between the stages in your dream and the stages in your goal. Steps. 1. Like that. You might notice, hang on a second, when I'm at this level, oops, there's a certain block here, and there's a certain block here, and a different block here. Oh, hang on a second, in my dream, this block came up here, this block came up here, and this block came up here. So we need to have steps towards our goal to make it a goal and not a dream, but also so we can identify the different aspects of our pathologos and how they manifest themselves and when they manifest themselves, because this is what we're on. This is our most important puzzle, solving the block, solving the pathologos view of the self. And then being in this game opens us up to different levels of questions, like what's the real nature of man? What's our purpose? Are we just a collection of beliefs and opinions, or is there something more? Does the process of midwifery bring one to recognize that we can be rational, and that this rational method and way of seeing is the start of a better way of being? Does it lead to the mystery of our existence? Midwifery uses our pathologos problems to introduce us to a need for a rational way of seeing. In other words, pathologos and midwifery uses our problems to introduce us to philosophy, which is a rational way of seeing and understanding. If there were a pill that could magically remove the pathologos, we still wouldn't take it, because we need to learn this way of understanding that we can apply to philosophy and to whatever level of reality we find ourselves in this life and beyond. So we wouldn't even magic pill our pathologos away. We have to still learn this. We would still use this method. We can see that even the worst of man's conditions, there is still a rationality. There is even the worst person. You can see a pattern in his problem. He always projects this. He always plays this kind of a victim. He always does this kind of cry bullying. He always uses this kind of word. That's a consistent, understandable, repeating, symmetrical pattern. That's mark of, those are aspects of rationality. So if you are actually interested in being a better person and looking for those times when you are like that, so that you can understand and remove it, you are utilizing because this is the nature of man, is we're trapped in that zombie-like state. We don't have the pathologos, it has us. But for man to be trapped, when I say man, I mean mankind. It's not gender thing. for mankind to be trapped in a problem means there has to be some sort of rationality maintaining our problem. We can reflect on that rationality in midwifery to discover that we are rational and that a rational way of seeing is important. Which can open us up to the philosophy game and ask these questions. What is man? What's man's destiny? What's our purpose? Are we more than beliefs and opinions? What's the meaning of life? Can we know it? Can we complete our work here? And so on and so on. Which is interesting because we were talking about earlier. Have to go. Thanks for hanging around. Thanks for the questions. And thanks for sticking through a challenging but meaningful conversation that I hope will benefit you the rest of your life and beyond. Remember all of the coffees that you are promised from the community if you share your comparative essays, all 18 of them. But thanks, I appreciate it. So we were talking about how we have to cross this line of development to where we can awaken qualities like the dialectic, ousia, self-reflection, and the self. In fact, you could say this level is rationality or logos or dialectic. This is pure ousia, and this is the self. So how do we, if we need logos and self and reflection on the self, if we need these three qualities to learn and grow, how the heck do we cross the line to where we can get them? That's where midwifery comes in. Because even here, below the line of dialectic and logos, ousia or turning about on yourself, and the self, so rationally turning about on the self, that's what learning is. Without that, how do we jump? Well, midwifery says even here below the line, there is a kind of rationality. There's a kind of ousia. There's a kind of view of yourself. That's very limited and distorted, of course, but there is still stuff here that we can make use of in philosophical midwifery that can allow us to make that jump. And that will also awaken us to the game of philosophy, because now that we know that there is such a thing as self, that's rational, there is such a thing as ousia or pure being or an objective standard of truth that everyone can use. We don't have to listen to groups or authorities or tyrants or cosplayers. I say that the people, authorities are pretending to be wise. That's why I say they're cosplaying. And and then there's a fun, rational, friendly, conversational method to get there. In other words, midwifery helps us out of our problems and utilizes our logos, ousia, and self enough to be able to see the possibility and need to jump up here through both midwifery and philosophy. Don't believe me, do it yourself. And if you do it yourself and you write a nice little comparative essay to share your experiences and your insights, we'll send the basket around the Discord group and we'll put enough money together to buy you a cup of coffee in thanks. So even in the worst of man's conditions, like we were just talking about, there is still rationality, but it is of a restricted kind. We said the only difference between the wisest and worst among us is one. Okay, so what's the difference between the wisest person, the best person, and the worst person? One doesn't know their premises are false, and so acts out the implications of one's ignorance, and fails to comprehend just how much of one's life is determined by fixed boundaries, whereas the wise person, and it finishes. So you finish that sentence, you solve that puzzle, and if you're feeling generous, share what you have found with us in the Discord. You can find a link below to join for free, and if you do, thank you so much. And if you I watched this video. Thanks for hanging in. It's a long one today, but worthwhile. It's lots of fun. Challenging, but interesting, and really demonstrating the kind of relationship and way of being that we are seeking to get into and have fun in, and maybe even master. Thank you once again. And cheers, and claps, and some sound drops.
I don't want to eat a monkey.
And the key players today was Chicken. Chicken danced for us today, and it was a bad dance, and he was a bit guilty about that. But he learned a better dance from Flamingo. Here it is. Very nice dance. Very nice dance. And Flamingo featured as the dance instructor today. And I think those were the featured players. Thank you once again, and I will see you next time. Bye. Bye.